Read the next word slowly and notice your own jaw. Yawn. Somewhere behind your back teeth, a small muscle just leaned toward it. Maybe your mouth stayed shut, maybe it didn't. Either way, some part of you just answered a word on a screen, a word that is not tired, is not a person, is not even a sound. You are one of 8 billion people carrying this reflex, and you are very far from the first to carry it. A dog does it, a chimpanzee does it, a wolf does it. The machinery under it is so old that it was already running in animals long before the first dinosaur ever walked. And yet here you are, a modern adult who believes most of the time that you are the one in charge, that your body is yours, that you decide when your own mouth opens. Then a stranger on a screen tips their head back and stretches their jaw, and your throat rises to follow, and nobody stopped to ask you first. That should feel like a small, silly thing. It isn't, because a caught yawn is not really about being tired at all. It is a signal, and the question of whose yawns you catch and whose you don't quietly points at something you would probably never say about yourself out loud. Hold on to that until the end. Start with the yawn alone, before it ever spreads. You were taught, almost certainly, that you yawn to get oxygen, that the room has gone stuffy, your blood is running low on air, and one big pull tops you back up. It is a tidy story. It is also wrong. When researchers gave people extra oxygen to breathe, they did not yawn any less. When they loaded the air with carbon dioxide, they did not yawn any more. The yawn calmly ignored the one thing it was supposed to be there to fix. And still, 100 years later, we keep repeating the oxygen story to each other, because a wrong answer we understand is more comfortable than a right one we don't. So what is it actually doing? The leading answer today is stranger and more interesting. A yawn may be a way of cooling your brain. Your brain is a small, hot engine, and it works best inside a narrow band of temperature. When it drifts too warm, at the sagging edges of sleep, in a stale room, in the flat gray middle of boredom, something has to pull it back. And a yawn is a beautifully violent little act. The jaw cranks wide and floods the face with blood. The lungs drag in a long draft of cooler outside air. For a moment, your whole head becomes a radiator, throwing off heat. Researchers found that people yawn less when a cool pack is pressed to their forehead, and that yawning even rises and falls with the seasons. The yawn is not chasing air, it is chasing temperature. Which reframes the whole thing. A yawn is a reset. It is your body reaching for a lever to change its own state, to drag you up toward alertness or to settle you down toward sleep. That is why they cluster at the seams of your day. Waking, tiring, bored, nervous, right at the edges where one state tips over into the next. So why would a private little reset button be catching? Because this is the part that should stop you. You do not even have to see a yawn to catch one. You can hear it in the dark. You can read the word on a page. You can simply think about it for too long, which by now you have. One of the researchers who spent his whole life on this found that most people, asked only to sit and think about yawning, began to yawn within minutes. It leaks through you at the lightest touch. Somewhere between 4 and 6 of every 10 people are wide open to it. And here's the clue that changes everything. This catching is not the same thing as the yawn. It is a second layer laid on top, and it only shows up in certain kinds of animals. The solitary ones don't have it. A tortoise, alone in its shell, yawns and never once catches yours back. But the social animals catch it constantly. Chimpanzees, wolves, dogs, some birds, and you. It even leaps between species. A dog will catch a yawn from the human it lives with, and catch it more often from the human it loves than from a stranger kneeling in front of it. Whatever this thing is, it rides on closeness, and it barely notices the boundary between one animal and the next. So picture the group it was built for. The light is going. A small band is gathered low to the ground as the day burns out, the fire not yet more than embers, the plain around them softening into dark. One of them yawns, a long, unhurried thing. The one beside her feels it move through her own jaw a moment later, and yawns too. Then the next. No one says a word. The yawn travels down the line like a message with no sender, and one by one their guards come down together, their bodies agreeing, without a single decision being made, that the day is over and it is safe now to let go. They are not a heap of separate animals. For that moment, they are one nervous system, breathing itself down toward sleep in unison. It works the other way in daylight too. One of them jerks up from a doze and yawns, and the yawn ripples outward through the circle, and a drowsy ring of bodies sharpens by a single degree, the whole group pulling its own alertness back up together before any one of them could tell you why. That is what the reflex is for. It is a way of keeping a group in step, of syncing when to rest and when to rise, so the band moves and settles as one body instead of 30 arguing ones. And now the part I asked you to hold. Who do you catch it from? Not everyone equally. When researchers measured it carefully, the yawn turned out to travel along the lines of the heart. Strangers pass it to you weakly, acquaintances a little more, friends and family most of all. The closer the bond, the more helplessly the yawn jumps the gap. It maps roughly onto how near a person already is to you. And it arrives on schedule in a child's life at around 4 or 5 years old, the very age when a child first grasps that other people have their own separate minds, their own weather moving behind their own eyes. Where reading other people runs harder, the catching tends to run weaker too. Scientists still argue about exactly what that means, whether the caught yawn measures deep empathy or something plainer, like how closely you happen to be watching another face. But the shape of it is hard to unsee. The reflex you feel faintly embarrassed by, the one that hijacks your mouth in the middle of a meeting, is tangled up in the same wiring you use to feel your way into another person. It is closeness made visible for half a second in muscle. So come back to your own face at your own desk. You scroll alone. You spend a great deal of your life behaving as though you were a sealed unit, one person behind one set of eyes, running your own private thoughts inside your own private skull. And there is a particular modern loneliness that comes with living that way, a quiet certainty that you are on your own in there. That certainty is new. Your body never agreed to it. So what is that yawn actually reaching for? Because your body still runs the older program, the one that never believed you were sealed off at all, the one that treats you as a single node inside something much larger, and that when the node beside you lowers its guard, quietly lowers yours to match. You yawned at a stranger on a screen a few minutes ago for one reason. Uncounted generations of your ancestors survived precisely because they were that permeable to one another, that easily tuned, that ready to move as one. So the next time it climbs your throat because somebody across the room started it, in the meeting, on the late train, from the person you love at the far end of the couch, you do not have to fight it, and you certainly do not have to feel foolish. That helpless little pull is one of the oldest pieces of evidence you carry that you were never built to be alone in there. Does that really sound like a weakness to you? It is the body remembering the shape of its group and reaching without asking your permission for the rest of us. And if a single written word made you yawn a few minutes ago, that was not your body slipping loose of your control. That was your body doing the one thing it has always known how to do: feel another of its kind nearby and lean quietly toward the warmth of the group. Right now, in a warm room, with nothing hunting you, a wave of tiny bumps just rose across your skin. Maybe it was a song, maybe a line in a film, or a memory that arrived without knocking. The back of your neck prickled. The hair on your arms stood up. A cool ripple moved over you, and then it was gone. You are one of 8 billion people carrying a reflex older than your species. It fired in animals that lived and died millions of years before the first human face existed. And it just fired in you, at a desk, over nothing you could touch. Because nothing happened. No wind, no cold, no teeth in the dark. Something invisible moved you. A sound, a thought, a feeling, and your body answered as if the world had changed. And a small part of you may have felt faintly silly for it. A grown adult, skin bristling at a chorus. But hold on to this until the end. There are thousands of tiny muscles in your skin, and at this moment, some of them are straining to do a job that ended over 1 million years ago. They are reaching for something you no longer have, and the chill a song sends up your arm is the ghost of it, standing up. Let's go find out what they're reaching for. Start with what a goosebump actually is. It is not your skin doing something odd. It is a muscle, a real one, with a name. At the base of every hair on your body sits a tiny slip of muscle called the erector pili. It is thinner than a thread. You have millions of them laid across your arms and legs and neck and scalp, and each one knows a single, simple move. It pulls. When it contracts, it tugs its hair upright and puckers the skin at the root into a small dome. Multiply that by a few 100,000, all at once, and a wave of them rises together across your skin. Here is the part that matters. You did not decide to do that. You cannot. There is no button for it, no muscle you can flex on command the way you close your hand. These muscles answer to a different government entirely, the ancient automatic nervous system that runs your heartbeat and your breath and your fear without ever asking you. It is the same system that dumps adrenaline into your blood when a car swerves toward you. When it fires everywhere at once, and your hair stands up whether you like it or not. So this was never a decision, it was always an alarm. Now, why would a body evolve an alarm that lifts its own hair? Look at almost any other mammal, and the answer is obvious. Because on them, it still works. Watch a cat meet a dog. In half a second, it doubles. Its fur stands straight out, its tail swells to a bottle brush, and a small animal becomes a big one without moving an inch. It didn't grow, it bristled. Every hair yanked upright by millions of those same tiny muscles, turning a house pet into something you would think twice about. A frightened porcupine does a fiercer version of the same trick, and so does almost every furred creature that has ever been cornered. That is the first ancient job, size. For an animal in a fight for its life, looking bigger can end the fight before it begins. A bristling creature says, without a sound, do not. And there is a second job, quieter and just as old, warmth. Picture a small bird on a freezing morning, puffed into a round ball twice its normal size. It is not sick, it is trapping heat. Lifting every feather opens a layer of still air against the skin, and still air is one of the finest blankets on Earth. Furred animals do exactly the same thing. Raise the coat, thicken the pocket of warm air held inside it, and you keep the heat you cannot afford to lose. On a cold dawn, that reflex is the difference between waking up and not. So walk back into the body of one of your distant ancestors, deep in the animal line, long before language. A cold, gray dawn on an open plain. The temperature drops, and before any thought can form, the coat rises on its own and holds a skin of warm air against the body. Later, a shape shifts in the tall grass. The heart slams, the blood floods with alarm, and the fur stands along the shoulders and the spine, and the creature is suddenly larger, harder to swallow, more trouble than it is worth. The muscle pulled, the coat lifted. It did exactly what it was built to do, and its owner lived to pass it down, to you. Now look down at your own arm. Where is the coat? This is the strange, quiet twist at the center of all of it. Somewhere across the long walk of human evolution, your ancestors shed their fur. You do not have the thick pelt anymore, just fine, faint hairs, most of them barely visible, standing over bare skin that shows the whole thing plainly. The muscle still fires. It still pulls with the exact same ancient signal it has always used, but there is almost nothing left to raise. So you don't puff up, you don't look bigger, you don't trap a warm blanket of air. You get the dimple, the small dome, the faint prickle, the movement of a coat that isn't there. The reflex has outlived the reason for it. You are running an animal's alarm on a body that deleted the fur 1,000,000 years ago, and the alarm has never once been told. A newborn does it too, in the first days of life, long before anyone could teach it. It is not a habit, it is inheritance. Which leaves a real question. If the fur is gone, why hasn't the reflex gone with it? And why, of all things, does it answer to music? Because the trigger got wired into something new. Remember, these muscles obey your alarm system, the automatic circuitry of fear and arousal. In an animal, that system speaks only the language of cold and threat. But as your ancestors' brains swelled, and their lives filled up with song and story, and the faces of the people they loved, that same old system reached into new territory. It began to fire not just at danger, but at meaning, at awe, at a rising chorus, a turning point in a story, a moment almost too big to hold in one chest. The alarm learned to ring for beauty. Scientists have a name for that particular shiver, frisson. And when neuroscientists at McGill University scanned people in the exact moment music was giving them chills, they watched the brain flood itself with dopamine, the same chemical reward it releases for food, for sex, for the things evolution treats as worth living for. The wave up your arm is your oldest alarm firing a reward, telling you without a single word, this one matters. Charles Darwin saw the thread a century and a half ago. In his book on the expression of emotion in 1872, he wrote about the involuntary bristling of hair in frightened and furious animals and in frightened and furious people, and understood it as one ancient reflex your own kind had simply never stopped sharing with them. He had no brain scans. He could see it anyway. And here is the last surprise, the one that turns the whole thing warm. That little muscle may not be so useless after all. In 2020, researchers at Harvard found that the erector pili does more than yank a hair. It physically bridges the nerve to the stem cells that grow new hair. Cold air fires the muscle, and the muscle helps wake those cells and rebuild the coat over time. The ghost, it turns out, still tends the garden. Even now, on your bare arm, it is quietly holding down a second job you never knew it had. So think about what your skin is actually doing when it rises. You are in a warm room, you are not cold, and nothing is hunting you. A song swells, or someone says the exact right thing, or a memory lands with its full weight, and a wave lifts every fine hair on your arm. Your body has just reached back across 1,000,000 years, pulled the string on a coat that no longer exists, and raised it to salute a piece of music, to answer a kindness, to mark a moment your thinking mind had not even finished deciding was important. You have been taught that it's random, or that it's just the cold, or that it's a little embarrassing, this bristling at a chorus like a startled cat. It is none of those things. It is the most honest thing your body does. It cannot lie, and it cannot be faked. It fires beneath you and before you at whatever actually moved you, and it tells you the truth a half second before your careful mind can talk you out of it. So the next time a song lifts the hair on your arm in a warm, safe room, and some part of you wants to feel foolish, don't. That is a muscle older than humanity, doing the one thing it has always done, reaching for a coat that is gone, standing up for something that mattered. Right now, in a warm room, with nothing hunting you, a wave of tiny bumps just rose across your skin. Now you know what stood up, and now you know it was never nothing. You're in the back seat. The road bends, the phone in your hand stays perfectly still, and somewhere behind your eyes, a switch quietly flips. First the warmth, then the sweat on your upper lip, then that slow sinking wrongness in your stomach that no position seems to fix. You crack the window, you stare at the horizon, you promise yourself you will never read in a car again. You call it a weak stomach, something small to apologize for. But here is what nobody told you. For roughly 300,000 years, no human being ever moved faster than they could run. Not one. There was no vehicle anywhere in the story of your species until a blink ago. Your ancestors were built for a world where the ground stayed still unless they moved it themselves. And when they felt exactly what you are feeling right now, the sweat, the swimming head, the rising stomach, it meant something very specific, something urgent. It meant you have been poisoned. Get it out. Now. That feeling in the back seat is not a malfunction. It is one of the oldest survival programs you carry, firing perfectly at completely the wrong thing. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why a smooth ride can make you sicker than a rough one, and why the person driving almost never gets sick at all. Start with a question you have probably never asked. How does your body know where it is? You do not think about it. You stand up in the dark and you simply know which way is down. That knowledge is not free. It is built, moment to moment, by 3 separate witnesses reporting to your brain. The first witness lives inside your skull, in the deepest part of your inner ear. There are 3 tiny loops of fluid there, set at angles to each other, and when your head turns, the fluid lags behind and bends microscopic hairs. That bending is how you feel rotation. Beside those loops sit small crystals resting on a jelly bed. When you accelerate, they drag. That drag is how you feel speed and gravity. The second witness is your eyes. They report what the world is doing. The third witness is your body itself, the pressure in your feet, the tension in your neck, the pull in your joints. Scientists call it proprioception. You could call it the feeling of being somewhere. Normally, these 3 agree. You walk and the ground scrolls past your eyes, your inner ear feels the sway of each step, your legs confirm the work. 3 stories, 1 truth. Your brain stitches them together so smoothly you never notice it happening. Now put yourself back in the car. Your inner ear feels everything. The turn, the braking, the rise of the hill. but your eyes are locked on a screen that is not moving at all, and the seat beneath you says your legs are doing nothing. Two witnesses swear you are perfectly still. One swears you are being flung through space. Your brain now has a disagreement it cannot resolve. Researchers in the 1970s, most famously the psychologist James Reason and his colleagues, called this the sensory conflict. It explains beautifully when motion sickness happens. Whenever the witnesses disagree, you feel ill. But it leaves the strangest part completely unexplained. Why should a disagreement between your ears and your eyes make you vomit? Nothing about that is obvious. Confusion does not usually empty a stomach. When you cannot find your keys, you do not throw up. When a magician fools your eyes, your body does not evacuate lunch. So why this one specific mismatch? Why does the body treat it as an emergency? In 1977, a researcher named Michelle Treisman published an answer in the journal Science, and it is one of those ideas that rearranges the furniture in your head. He asked the question backwards. Instead of asking what motion sickness is for, he asked what else could possibly scramble the agreement between your balance organs and your eyes in a world with no cars, no boats, no elevators, no screens. There is one very good answer: poison. Many of the toxins that plants and fungi make are neurotoxins. They do not attack your muscles or your bones. They attack the nervous system, and one of the very first things they degrade is the delicate machinery of balance and eye movement. That is why the world tilts. That is why the room spins. Long before a poison kills you, it makes your witnesses start contradicting each other. So imagine you are a brain, sitting in the dark of a skull 300,000 years ago. Your only information about reality is what those three witnesses tell you, and suddenly they stop agreeing. You have no way of knowing about cars, because cars will not exist for another 300,000 years. You have exactly one explanation available. Something in this body is wrong at the chemical level. Something was eaten. And there is only one useful thing to do about that: empty the stomach immediately. Then feel terrible about food for a while so the body does not go back for a second helping of whatever did this. Picture her, late afternoon at the edge of a dry woodland, the light going gold and low. A young woman with a digging stick and a fold of hide, and a root she has not eaten before. It smells like the one she knows. She takes it back to the fire, and she eats. An hour later she stands, and the world leans. The trees slide sideways when she knows they are still. Sweat comes up cold across her back. Her mouth waters in that thin, awful way. She goes down on her hands in the dirt, and her body does the only thing it can do. And it does it hard, and it does it without asking her permission. She feels destroyed, and she lives. Somewhere in that same generation, there is a woman with a quieter alarm, a body slower to sound it. She keeps the meal down. She does not wake up. You are descended from the one who vomited. Here is the turn. That system was never designed to be accurate. It was designed to be cheap and fast and hysterical, because the two mistakes it could make were not remotely equal in cost. Sound the alarm when there is no poison, and you lose a meal and an hour of dignity. Stay quiet when there is poison, and you lose everything. Every gene you carry, every future child, gone. When one error costs a bad afternoon, and the other costs your entire line, evolution does not build a careful detector. It builds a smoke alarm that goes off at toast. And that is what you are sitting inside on the highway. A smoke alarm, doing its job flawlessly, in a building it has never seen before. This is why the details of car sickness are so strange until you know what the system is actually looking for. It explains why the driver almost never gets sick. The driver's hands are on the wheel. Every turn is a command they issued a fraction of a second before it happened, so their brain predicts the motion instead of receiving it. The witnesses stay in agreement. Give that same person the passenger seat and a phone, and they turn green like everyone else. It explains why looking at the horizon helps. You are not distracting yourself. You are handing your eyes a view that finally matches what your inner ear is already reporting, and the argument quiets down. It explains why virtual reality can wreck you while you stand perfectly still on a carpet, because now the lie runs in the opposite direction. Your eyes insist you are falling through a canyon, and your inner ear insists you have not moved an inch. The alarm does not care which witness is lying, it only cares that they disagree. And it explains why you cannot talk yourself out of it. The circuits doing this live in the brainstem, in the old machinery underneath thought. You can understand every word of this video and still be sick in a taxi tomorrow. Understanding was never an input this system accepted. So think about what this actually means about you. To apologize to a driver who does not understand why you cannot just look at your messages like a normal person. But the people who feel it most are not the people with the weakest bodies. They are the people with the most sensitive alarms. Your ancestors did not survive by being tough. They survived by being suspicious, by having a nervous system that overreacted, that assumed the worst, that emptied the stomach on thin evidence and apologized later. You are not fragile in the back seat. You are extremely well defended against a threat that stopped coming a long time ago. There is something almost tender in it when you sit with it. Your body has no idea where it is. It has no concept of an engine or an interstate or a sealed metal room moving at 70 miles an hour while its occupant reads about someone else's day. It only knows that the witnesses are fighting and that the last time they fought this badly, in the world it was actually built for, staying quiet meant dying at the edge of a fire. So it does the loyal thing. It sounds the alarm. It always sounds the alarm. The road bends. The phone is still in your hand. Put it down. Look at the horizon. Not because you are weak, and not because you failed at something everyone else finds easy. Do it because somewhere in the long dark behind you, a woman ate a root she should not have eaten, and her body knew exactly what to do. And that is the only reason you are here to feel sick at all. You're standing at the door in your workout clothes. The shoes are on, the water bottle is full, and somewhere between the door and the couch, your whole body casts a single silent vote. No, not today. You call it laziness. You call it weak will, a lack of discipline, one more quiet failure to add to the pile you've been carrying all year. But here's what nobody told you. For roughly 300,000 years, no human being ever exercised. Not one push-up, not one lap around the block, not a single burpee anywhere in the entire archaeological record. Your ancestors were among the fittest humans who ever lived, and they would have watched you run on a treadmill with genuine alarm, because in their world, the thing you call a workout had a different name. It was called an emergency. And that voice in your head that begs you to skip the gym, that voice is not your weakness. That voice kept your entire bloodline alive. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand why the couch keeps winning, and why the fittest people in history were also, by your standards, the laziest. Think about what your body actually is. It is an engine built by scarcity. Every cell in you was designed in a world where food was uncertain, where a meal had to be walked for, dug for, chased for. In that world, energy was not something you burned to feel good about yourself. Energy was the budget your life ran on. Spend it wrong and you starved. So, evolution installed a manager, a strict, ancient accountant who sits in the oldest part of your brain and audits every single expense. Harvard evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman has spent his career studying how humans move, and his conclusion is blunt. Exercise, in the modern sense, is deeply strange. Humans never evolved to work out. They evolved to move when moving paid, and to rest every moment it didn't. Hunter-gatherers do not jog to stay in shape. They walk because the food is far away. They dig because the tubers are underground. They run because dinner is running too. Movement always had a purpose, a destination, a reward at the end of it. So ask yourself, what exactly is the reward at the end of a treadmill? Look at the Hadza people of Tanzania, some of the last full-time hunter-gatherers on Earth. Anthropologist Herman Poncer and his colleagues spent years measuring how their bodies actually spend energy. Hadza adults walk farther in a single day than many office workers walk in a week. Their hearts stay strong deep into old age. By every measure of fitness that matters, they outperform us without ever setting foot in a gym. Now here comes the part that should change how you see your couch. When researchers put activity monitors on them, they found that Hadza adults rest about 10 hours a day. 10 hours! roughly the same amount of sitting as you in your desk job. The fittest people on the planet are not in constant motion. They move hard when life requires it, and then they stop, completely, without guilt. Nobody in that camp calls anybody lazy for sitting by the fire all afternoon. There is one difference, though, and it's a quiet one. When they rest, they squat, they kneel, they sit on the ground. Postures that keep the muscles gently awake. Their rest is soft, but it is never fully slack. Earned motion, then honest rest. That was the rhythm of the human body for its entire history. And make no mistake, your body was built for magnificent movement. Scientists who study human anatomy point out that we are walking collections of running equipment. Springy tendons in the legs, sweat glands that let us cool ourselves while other animals overheat, big gluteal muscles that barely fire when we walk but roar when we run. Some researchers argue our ancestors could jog after prey through the midday heat until the animals simply collapsed from exhaustion. You are, on paper, one of the great endurance machines of the animal kingdom. So why does a flight of stairs feel like a moral test? Because all of that machinery came with a lock on it. The machinery only unlocks when the accountant approves the expense. Chasing dinner? Approved. Walking to water? Approved. Running in place, indoors, going nowhere, chasing nothing, burning calories you already paid money for? The accountant stares at that request in disbelief and denies it. Picture her. East Africa, early morning, the sky still orange over the acacia trees. A woman rises from her sleeping spot, picks up a wooden digging stick, and starts walking. She has a baby on her hip and several miles ahead of her. She walks to the tuber grounds. She digs through hard, dry soil for hours, muscles working, sweat falling. Then she loads the food, lifts the child, and walks all those miles home. By afternoon, she has done more real exercise than most modern people do in a week. And then she stops. She squats by the fire. She cracks nuts, she talks, she laughs. She does absolutely nothing that isn't necessary. She will not take one single step more than she has to. Why would she? Every calorie she burns tomorrow must first be dug out of the ground today. Her rest is not a failure of character. Her rest is the entire point of the work. Movement was the tax. Rest was the reward. And your brain still runs on her math. Now watch what the modern world did to that math. It took away every reason to move. The water comes from the wall. The food comes to the door. The temperature is handled. The distance is handled. The chasing is handled. And then, having removed every natural purpose for movement, the modern world turned around and told you to move anyway, alone, in a bright room, on a machine, for nothing. Your ancient accountant checks the ledger. No prey, no destination, no tribe waiting at the end. Request denied. That heaviness you feel at the gym door is not a character flaw. It is a 300,000-year-old budget office doing its job with total dedication. You are never lazy. You are efficient. You are the descendant of the most careful energy accountants in the history of life, the ones who never wasted a step. And that is precisely why you are here to feel guilty about it. And if you need proof that your instincts are right about this, consider where the treadmill actually came from. It was not invented for fitness. In the early 1800s, treadmills were installed in English prisons as a form of hard labor. Prisoners walked for hours on turning wheels, going nowhere, on purpose, as punishment. The pointlessness was the point. It was designed to break a person's spirit through meaningless motion, and it was eventually condemned as too cruel to continue. Then, generations later, we built the same machine, put a screen on it, and paid for the privilege. Your body never got the memo that this is supposed to be self-improvement now. When you step onto that belt, some deep part of you recognizes the shape of the thing. Effort without destination, toil without reward. Every instinct you own files the same complaint the prisoners would have filed. So is it really so surprising that you dread it? So what do you do with a body like this? You stop fighting its nature and start speaking its language. The accountant approves movement with a purpose, so give it one. Walk to a real place instead of driving. Carry the heavy bag. Take the stairs because they actually lead somewhere. And the accountant loves company, because for your ancestors, moving together meant hunting, gathering, celebrating, surviving together. A walk with a friend gets approved where a solo treadmill session gets feed out. Play a sport. Chase your kid. Dance badly in your kitchen. Researchers who study this say it plainly. If you want to move more, make it necessary or make it social. Or make it fun. Because willpower alone is arguing with an accountant who has never once lost an argument. And on the days you rest, rest like she did, fully, without shame. Your body doesn't hate movement, it hates meaningless movement. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. So tomorrow, when you stand at that door in your workout clothes and your whole body casts its silent vote, you'll know who is voting. It's her. The woman with the digging stick miles behind her, child on her hip, checking the budget one more time, asking one simple question: is this trip worth it? You are not broken. You are not weak. You are carrying survival equipment so effective it outlived the world it was built for. So give it what it always wanted. Not punishment, not guilt. A reason. Walk somewhere real. Carry something that matters. Move like it means something. And rest like you've earned it. Because you come from people who did both, perfectly, for 300,000 years. And their fitness plan was called being alive. It's there again when the room goes quiet. A small ache you can't quite point to. Not in your stomach, not in your chest. It sits in your skin. You pull the blanket a little tighter, and for a second the weight of it helps, but it isn't the thing your body is actually asking for. You hold your own hand, you press your own arm, and some quiet, older part of you keeps waiting for a touch that never comes. You might call it loneliness, you might not call it anything at all. But step back for a moment. Step back further than tonight, further than the walls around you, past the city and the wires and the glowing screens, all the way back to the world your body was actually built for. Your skin is the largest organ you own, and it was shaped across hundreds of thousands of years to expect one thing almost constantly. And that one thing is exactly what the modern world has quietly taken away. So here is something almost nobody tells you. Your ancestors were almost never starved for touch. For nearly the entire human story, going a whole day untouched would have been strange, even dangerous. And hidden in your skin, right now, is a special kind of nerve. It does not fire for heat, it does not fire for pain, it does not even wake up for a hard, firm grip. It switches on for one thing only: the slow, gentle touch of another living person. By the end of this, you will know what that nerve is, why it is there, and why for the first time in the story of your kind, so many people are living without it. Let's go back. Picture a shelter more than 50,000 years ago, deep in the cold hours before dawn. There is no bed, there is no separate room, no private corner where one person sleeps alone. There is a single warm knot of bodies, packed close against the dark, breathing in the same slow rhythm. A child is folded against a grandmother, an arm rests across a brother. Somebody's fingers move idly through somebody else's hair. If you had been born into that world, you would have spent almost every night of your life like this, pressed against other people, and almost every day within arm's reach of a hand that knew you. This was not unusual. For your ancestors, it was simply what a life felt like. Skin against skin was the constant background of being alive. Now look at how the other primates live, because they can show you where you came from. A troop of monkeys, a family of apes, will spend hours of every single day doing one thing together: grooming. Fingers combing slowly through fur, one after another, hour after hour. For a long time, people assumed this was just cleaning, just picking out dirt and insects. But it turned out to be something far deeper. There is not nearly enough dirt in that fur to explain how much time they spend. The grooming is the point. When one animal strokes another like this, the brain of the one being touched releases a soft flood of its own natural painkillers, the same chemicals that give you a feeling of warmth and calm and safety. This is how they say, without a single sound, "You are one of mine, and I am one of yours." Touch, for them, is not hygiene. Touch is the glue that holds the whole group together. And you are built from the same blueprint. More than half a century ago, one of the most famous experiments in the history of psychology tried to find out what a baby really needs. Infant monkeys were given 2 fake mothers. One was made of cold wire but held a bottle of milk. The other gave no food at all but was wrapped in soft cloth. Every theory of the time said a baby should love whatever fed them. They did not. The infants clung to the soft cloth mother almost all day long and let go only for a few seconds to feed, then rushed straight back to the softness. When they were frightened, they did not run to the food. They ran to the thing that felt like being held. Sit with what that means. Contact, the plain comfort of something soft to cling to, was not a luxury laid on top of survival. It was survival. A body that was held could calm down. A body that was not stayed locked in quiet alarm. So now you reach the thing hidden in your own skin. When the scientists who study touch went looking, they found something strange. Buried in the skin all over your body is a set of nerve fibers that do not behave like the others. Your ordinary touch sensors are fast and factual. They report pressure, texture, sharpness, so your brain can answer the question, what is this? But this other kind of fiber is slow, and it does not care about facts at all. It barely responds to a poke or a firm push. What wakes it up is a gentle stroke, moving at a soft, unhurried, caress-like speed, at roughly the warmth of human skin. In other words, it is tuned with almost eerie precision to the feeling of another person touching you with care. And here's the part that should stop you. Those fibers do not send their signal to the busy map in your brain that works out shapes and edges. They run instead toward the deep emotional core, the same region that colors your sense of comfort, belonging, and safety. This is the nerve you were promised at the start. It is not there to tell you what is touching you. It is there to tell you that you are not alone. Your body grew a dedicated sensory channel, woven through your entire skin, whose only job is to feel the presence of another human being and turn it into calm.
Think about how sure evolution had to be that touch would always be there. You do not grow a whole system for something rare. You grow it for something as reliable as the ground. For almost all of human history, another warm body within reach was exactly that reliable. The system was never meant to sit idle. You can watch it switch on at the very beginning of a life. Lay a newborn bare against a parent's chest, skin against skin, and something quietly extraordinary happens. The baby's racing heart steadies, its breathing settles, its temperature and its stress calm toward the parent's own. No words, no instruction, just skin telling skin, you are safe now, you are home. That is not a trick of modern medicine. That is the oldest medicine there is, doing exactly what it was built to do. So what happened to you? In a blink of evolutionary time, your world became one that runs almost entirely without touch. You can wake, work, eat, be entertained, and fall asleep having spoken to many people and been touched by none of them. You live behind your own front door. You greet each other through glass and typed words. The warm knot of sleeping bodies became one person in one bed in one quiet room. A full day of your closest contact might be the smooth, cool face of a phone.
The researchers who study this have a plain name for what it leaves behind: touch hunger, skin hunger. And it is not a poetic idea. When people go without gentle human contact, their stress runs higher, their sleep runs thinner, and that vague, hollow ache in the skin, the one from the start of tonight, quietly grows. Your ancient touch system is still switched on, still scanning, still waiting for the hand that used to always be there. It does not understand that the world changed. It only knows that the thing it was promised has not come. So if you have felt that ache and been ashamed of it, if some part of you has called yourself needy or clingy or too much for wanting to be held, you need to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are a creature built by a world of constant closeness, doing its honest best inside a world that forgot to touch you. The wanting is not a flaw in you. It is one of the truest, oldest signals your body has, working exactly as it was designed. It is proof that the blueprint is still intact.
And it means the ache points somewhere real, a long hug that lasts past the polite second, a hand held without hurry, fingers through hair, an arm across a shoulder, skin allowed to rest against skin. To your busy modern mind, these can feel small, almost childish. To the ancient system under your skin, they are a message tens of thousands of years old, finally arriving. So the next time the room goes quiet, and that small ache rises in your skin, and you reach for the blanket and pull it a little tighter, remember what it is really asking for. Not warmth, not weight, another human being, close in the dark, the way it always used to be.